Are you ready to take your business to the next level? Every day there are countless books and articles that are published offering the key on how to make your business a success. It's easy to feel overwhelmed trying to keep up and run your business. That's why Deb Creer created the Business Power Hour. Keep up on the latest trends, best practices, and techniques for how to make your business a success. Let the Business Power Hour do the heavy work for you.
Good morning. Good morning. I am Deb Creer, and I am passionate about giving professionals the tools that they need to make themselves and their businesses as successful as possible. Today, we're going all the way across the pond, right, to speak with my guest today. And we're going to be talking about a very important subject. So please join me in welcoming Bianca Best to our program today. Welcome, Bianca. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. Thank you so much for having me. I'm absolutely delighted to be here with you.
Perfect. I love it. I love it. Well, let me tell people a little bit about you, and then we will jump into this. So Bianca Best is a woman of impact. She is an award-winning global business leader, a best-selling author. She's the founder and CEO of the Burnout business and Energy-SCAPE method. She is a certified coach, a keynote speaker, and a solo parenting mother of four teenagers. Get that. She is passionate about eradicating the world's burnout epidemic at scale. As I mentioned, she is an author, and her most recent book is Big Impact Without Burnout: 8 Energizing Strategies to Stop Struggling and Start Soaring. Holy schmoly. Welcome, Bianca. How are you?
Thank you. Thank you. It sounds like a lot, and it probably is, especially when we count those children.
It got me so flustered talking about 4 teenagers that it just threw me. But yeah, it is something that I think is so very important to talk about. But first, tell us a little bit more about how it is that you got to where you are today.
Thank you. So I am accompanied with a Dalmatian. Can you hear my Dalmatian in the distance? Apologies.
No, can't hear him. So
okay. So I have had a journey of entrepreneurialism and working in corporate and raising a family. And throughout my leaning into ambitions across my life, I reached a point towards the end of my 20s where I started slamming into walls and experiencing burnout often. So I had to learn how to self-manage in such a way that I didn't keep falling over whilst I was pursuing my dreams. And this took a while. And I found that initially when the burnout episodes were striking, I would feel very ashamed and like I was failing because I was literally inert in bed. And it took me a long time to realize that I needed to pay attention to what was happening and I needed to self-manage better in order to achieve my dreams. And so this is why I'm now doing the work that I do. And I call myself a burnout authority, which certainly wasn't the dream when I was a little girl.
It's not one of those job titles we think about, right?
No, it's certainly not. But I can tell you a little bit about how I started my first business, because this is very much part of my story and important when we get into talking about burnout. Now, I was married in my mid-20s and blessed to have two children very quickly. So I was at the point where I just had a baby girl and was sitting at home feeding my baby daughter, and my toddler son was just toddling around in his nappy, crunching cornflakes into the carpet. House was a mess. I was a mess. My hair was a mess, and I'm sitting there feeding the baby. I suddenly remember it was my then husband and I, it was our 10-year anniversary. So I'm thinking, oh, I can't bear the thought of actually getting dressed, getting the children ready, getting out to the shops, buying a gift. What am I going to do? Exactly. You know, that pressure. So I just thought, no, I'm not going to do that. So I sat there and I wrote him a poem called A Decade to Remember. And then set about in the house. I found an old frame, printed the poem out, stuck it in this frame, put some photos around it. So it was a lovely memento. He came home that evening, gave him his gift. He's very happy. That present was then hanging on the wall in our hallway. Everyone that came round to visit the baby, visit us, said, "Oh, where did you order that? That looks gorgeous. I love that idea as a gift." So my brain started whirring into, well, could this become a marketable commodity? Is there potential to actually take this product idea into the world? And this was back in 2004, when the landscape of personalized gifts wasn't as buoyant as it is today. And I just had the idea that I could disrupt it and I could create truly personalized gifts. So I just became a woman with a double buggy on a mission to create a new marketplace. And I did. And I went out fueled by energy, passion, tension, intention, knocked on every door I could to find partners, to find printers. I was in industrial estates with my buggy, just going, hi, you work with me, getting a lot of doors shut in my face. But I persisted and persisted until I was ready, launched the business, put an advert on Overture. This is pre-Google. This is how long ago this was. Put an advert out, and within 20 minutes I'd sold my first personalized poem product for
I love it.
£80, and that was it. I was like,
whoa,
my little happy dance at home in the playroom.
You and the babies are dancing, right?
Me and the babies going, we've done it. So that was it. I was off, validated, there's a market for this. Fast forward a year, I had signed every online gift retailer in the United Kingdom, from WH Smith's to department stores, Tesco's. I mean, it went bananas. And I was running the business at this huge moment of expansion from home, around babies, around the children. And we literally had customer service in the playroom, the large format printer within the nursery. I had production in the garage. I mean, it was chaos. We were kicking potties out of the way. I mean, no health and safety supervising.
Good thing that,
But it was an incredibly invigorating time. And I was employing pensioners, school mums, just anyone that could come on the journey with me. The business grew and grew. And I felt alive, electrified with the passion and the pace of growth. It was incredibly invigorating. Just at the point where I was about to launch into a franchise model, I had concessions in department store, I had boutiques that were opening. I found out I was pregnant again. This time it was
twins.
So suddenly I had 4 children under 7 and this burgeoning business, which was definitely a bit of a moment of, okay, how do I manage this? Because I was in the realm of, I'm an entrepreneur, I'm a businesswoman, and then fate said, hang on, this is a lot more to cope with what you're already doing. And I took it as a sign from the universe to focus in on family.
Right.
And I philosophized that I'm going to have the rest of my life, hopefully, to work, to earn money, to run businesses. And this is my moment to nurture little people. So I paused on all the business expansion and I focused inwardly on family.
I love that.
It was not even a question mark for me. It was an obvious choice. And that first year of these 4 little people under 7, me at home, I mean, I thought the carpet was mucky before when I had 2 kids.
Right. And then 4, oh my.
I mean, friends would come around and be like, shall I get the Hoover out for you, Bianca? And so, it was all chaos, but it was one of the happiest years of my life. And despite the sleep deprivation, despite the chaos, I was so focused, purposeful on what mattered most. And this is something that I now teach a lot in the work that I do in my consultancy and my coaching around avoiding burnout, because that year I didn't burn out because I was so motivated by what I was
passion.
doing. My passion. Exactly. So eventually I sold that business and ended up coming into the corporate world, which I've scaled over the past 13 years. And just 2 days ago, I left the corporate world and am now back into entrepreneurialism and back into running my own business again. And it's all changed. The reason I emphasize the story of that initial foray into entrepreneurialism is, as I'm sure you can imagine, that took a lot of focus and energy. To raising the family, running that business. When I sold it and I was in corporate, I was again expanding, pushing energy in a lot of different directions simultaneously. throughout a 10-year period of sort of running that business and being in corporate, my burnouts became incredibly detrimental and worse and worse and worse. And at its worst point, I was hospitalized with total immune collapse and told that my body was starting to shut down. My hair had all fallen out. I was a skinny mini. I had tonsillitis, bronchiolitis, conjunctivitis, every itis. I just had no resistance. And yet in that moment when the doctor said to me, your body's shutting down, I was like, no, what do you mean?
I have things to do.
Yeah, exactly that. And he said, you're stressed. I was like, I'm not stressed. I'm not stressed. I'm living the dream. I'm living the dream. And he taught me, no, you're not living the dream. So I gradually started a process of very deep, exploratory, ever expanding self-awareness that got me to a place where I could eventually sustain what I call graceful productivity to be able to have an impact in the world, all the areas that matter most, without collapsing with burnout. And this is what I bottle up and I now, and I know what we're going to talk about today.
Right. I love that. Well, yeah, I mean, you just have such an incredible story. But let's kind of take one little step back. How do you define burnout?
Physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual collapse.
Okay.
Holistic collapse.
Right.
It's a grounding that happens inadvertently where overwhelm literally debilitates us to the place where we are so diseased we can no longer function.
Right. And it's not just one day of, oh, I feel tired. It's a cumulative effect.
Exactly that. It starts with an initial sort of fogginess and fatigue. It starts with looking at the to-do list and not being excited, but being like, oh,
yeah,
battle with
even
it.
on the things that are your passion, right?
Exactly. It all just becomes too much. And eventually we slide into total inertia. And that's the thing with burnout. It literally renders you paralyzed, unable to contribute to anything. And that's why it's so important that we become aware of the precursors to burnout individually.
Right. Do you think that women suffer more from burnout than men? And the reason I'm saying that is because, yeah, men are good dads, they're good providers, all of those things. But I think women still take on more. And we hold ourselves at a different level is maybe the thing.
Yeah. I mean, and this is not just supposition, the statistics will prove it. So sadly, the global average at the moment, I mean, these are both horrible statistics. Men burn out at a rate of 41%, whereas women are at 60%.
Right.
We are burning out more often than men. And the reason attributable to that fact is that across the world, women are responsible for 68% of the domestic and emotional labor at home.
Right.
68%. So like you say, exactly to your point, we do take on more. And, you know as well as I do, that emotional labor, never mind cleaning the kitchen and popping the dishwasher on, the emotional labor, how intense is that?
Right. Right. And it is obviously a challenge and a struggle, and it's the bad part is, as you said, it's increasing. And it's kind of funny because during COVID, we all, when we were in lockdown mode, it's kind of like we paused. But then when we came out, it was like, oh my gosh, and I think we heaped more on what we were doing. The kids were able to go do things again. We were able to go do things more ourselves. We were back at work, all of those things.
Well, interestingly, in Europe, during the pandemic, we actually lulled into 11-hour working days as average.
Right, because it was easy.
Well, because there were no boundaries suddenly. And I would say there was a real panic. There was a panic of I need to keep my jobs. And we wanted to keep some element of stability in this very certain unknown world. And so we slipped into this normality of 11-hour days being normal. And I think we've really struggled to get back into, hang on, let's contract that. That's not
Right.
sustainable. And now we're just in this world of always on, and society has normalized that. Really unhealthy.
Right. And you talk about being always on. Our phones need to be surgically removed from our hands, right? And we're up checking email at 2 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah.
All of these various things, or even just Facebook, whatever it is, we are not turning off.
Exactly.
And I think that's one of the things, and you talk about this in your book, is we have to have that downtime. Now, you might still be doing something, right? You might be spending time with your family, whatever it is, but kind of the mental break time. And it needs to be more than I'm doing it for 5 minutes.
Exactly that. And it needs to be really wholesome rejuvenation. Because also what I notice is in this swirly world of being always on, when we get a break, rather than listen to our bodies and go and rejuvenate and put our pajamas on or go and sit in the garden, quite often we will switch into another mode of productivity, whether it's meeting girlfriends in a cocktail bar to go out, whether it's going to watch television and actually be stimulated in a different way. We're not necessarily remembering how to relax in a truly wholesome way. And I did some research in my book where I interviewed lots of women to say, how do you relax? And it was fascinating to see the array of different responses. I got a lot of giggles and a lot of smirks and a lot of
relax.
Right. Literally like that. And I also got some very performative responses that were, oh, well, yeah, I relax by listening to my favorite podcast whilst I'm ironing the sheets.
That's real relaxing.
And lots of, while I listen to my book, while I'm driving my car, taking the kids to their clubs, it was always a sort of plugging in something supposedly relaxing and restorative whilst doing something else. There was very little, well, I go and meditate for an hour in the garden every
nap.
Yeah, or nap. Exactly. So yeah, I teach a lot of my clients. Let's learn how to relax. Let's go back to what did you do as a child? What was your favorite thing that you would do when you shut the bedroom door and you were on your own? What were you doing as a kid? Because we've gone so far from that, and that's not soothing for our soul.
Right. It's funny. I joke about naps, but I nap frequently. And 10 minutes, you do more than that and your body gets thrown off. Right. And so, but I was forced to, because of I have a three-time cancer survivor, and my medicines actually cause fatigue. And so but I tell people I've gone back to being a kindergartner. I take my nap and then I get up and I have milk and graham crackers. I don't do the milk and graham cracker. I should, right? Wouldn't that be fun?
It's wonderful. It's so important.
And I have discovered that I can push to the point of, I know I am not doing things well, which I should have stopped before then. But then I go, and even if I don't sleep, I lay down, I try to relax, get my body to go, okay, I'm not quite so cranky. And then I am more productive with whatever it is.
That's wonderful. That's wonderful that you've identified that. And well, not wonderful, but I'm sorry that you have found it through medication, but congratulations on surviving. And the interesting power of sleep is that what it's doing, as I'm sure you know, is dropping us into alpha brainwave frequency. And when we get out of beta and high beta or beta, to say it the American way, when we drop down into those alpha waves, our whole body can slip back into homeostasis and become more peaceful. And in that state of internal physical peace, we are able to enjoy all of the different systems within the body functioning optimally. So obviously that impacts our brain and our cognition. So if I'm feeling myself being a bit frenzied, like you've just described, where you feel you're not at your best, I know I'm going to make the wrong decision or say the wrong thing. So getting down into the alpha state is just soothing, and it minimizes the risk of us doing something we might regret. So all power to the nap.
Right. Or even, as we said, just, turning your brain off for that little bit, going out going outside, going for a walk, right? And we know, I mean, studies have shown that when you do something distracting, I'm going to say, which is not really distracting because it's good for you, but when you're not sitting at your desk thinking, I have to work on this project, I have to do this, I have to solve this problem, when you kind of put your brain in neutral, it frees it up to go, oh, here's the solution to what I've been working on.
Yeah, that's lovely. And it's rather like mental floating, isn't it? And you allow, in the space of floating, you allow ideas and imagination to bubble up. And that's sadly what we're missing, because we just fill our time chock-a-block with things all the time. But it's beautiful when we actually float and see what bubbles up.
Right. And when you're outside, we have a trail behind our house. It's actually 100 miles. I mean, it's gloriously maintained and all sorts of things. And, try to get out numerous times a week. I don't get out nearly as much as I should. But it amazes me when I see people who are multitasking even then. They're on the phone, they're listening to whatever. Now, if they're listening to music, that's a little bit different. But when you can tell they're listening to a podcast or something like that, to me, that's, yes, it's good that you're getting out and getting fresh air and sunshine and all that, but your brain is not relaxing. I try and identify as many birds as I can. I know nothing about the birds. I'm just, but I'm not going to listen to something while I'm walking because I want to enjoy that peace and quiet. And sometimes it's not peaceful and quiet, but it's just the outdoor sounds.
Well, and you know what you're doing when you're doing that? You're being fully present. And when we're fully present, we're inviting our bodies to get back into that soothed state of calm.
Right.
So that's a gift you're giving yourself. That's lovely.
It's about to get too warm here. Well, actually, no, it just means I need to go in the morning, right? As opposed to walking in the afternoon. But whatever it is, for people who are in a city, you might not want to go out and walk because, but shut your door. Turn on calming music, do whatever. Turn your phone upside down so that you're not glancing at it going, oh,
no, it's exactly. I mean, that whole the myth of multitasking, it's something, again, I have to teach a lot of the clients that I work with who might be high performers, and they feel proud of the fact that they're doing multiple things at once. But it's been proven in study after study that if you're multitasking, your IQ actually drops by 10 points.
Because your brain is not wired to do that. Our brains are wired to do one thing at a time.
Exactly. And it feels more satisfying, more fulfilling, and more rejuvenating, actually, when we're allowing ourselves to get into flow.
Right.
So it's not clever if you're cooking tea for the kids and you're on the laptop and you're trying to book a dental appointment. Not clever. It's exhausting. You're far better off just having tea, then ringing the dentist, and then going back to the laptop. And that's rejuvenating. And presence is something that is also so missing from life. And like you just described, when you're on your trail, be present, and that's rejuvenating. Actually, what it comes back to is the equation between stress and rest being a very important equation, because stress plus rest equals growth. So if we want growth and we want impact and success, we've got to very personally manage our blend of stress and rest. And that is going to be very individual for each and every one of us, because we've each got different stress tolerances, risk tolerances, and the way we manifest and react stress. And perhaps you can cope with more stress than I can. You will rest and rejuvenate in a different way from me. But when you design what that looks like for you, healthy stress plus rejuvenating rest, then you can be in a constant state of growth and impact. And that's lovely and quite simple.
And I love that you mentioned you need to find what works for you. How many times have the self-help books, the gurus, the whoever, you must do X.
Yeah.
And they're like, you have to do this for 60 minutes a day. I'm not ever going to do anything for 60 minutes a day besides sleep at night, right?
Exactly.
And even then I'm doing good. But we need to find what works best for us. Because if you're forcing it, then that stress level is going back up.
Exactly. Well, it's another form of overwhelm.
Right.
Because you've got to choose how to be well.
I have to relax for 10 more minutes.
Exactly. And it shouldn't be exhausting. So a lot of what I teach in my workshops and in my book, I talk about bio-individuality and the fact that we're responding individually to stress in different ways, whether it's environment or food, different supplements. We're all going to react differently. And so let's just choose things that make us feel marvelous. And there's never any blanket one size fits all.
Right.
And we've got to learn our own sensitivity. And you might be able to drink coffee. I might not be able to tolerate coffee.
Right.
And so it's up to me to work it out and to make sure that I manage my life in such a way I can have impact in the ways and areas that matter most.
Right. I love that you mentioned coffee because I'm sitting here with my coffee cup. And your most recent blog, when I was looking, is about coffee. But I have to share, this is not coffee.
Oh, tell me.
This is the mushroom coffee, which is supposed to be healthier it tastes better. And here in the States, Neil Patrick Harris is who and I'm like, sure, whatever Doogie tells me to do, I'm going to do. But yeah, it's an interesting concept because it's supposed to give you more energy, also without that caffeine, because it is a natural product. So it'll be interesting.
I'd love to try that.
Amazon.
I really
and
will.
there's several different blends of it, but yeah, it is designed, and part of it is our habits, right? And I know you talk a lot about that. I have the habit of first thing in the morning, I want a cup of coffee.
Yep.
Now, it's like it doesn't matter what it is. It's that thing in my hand. For a lot of people, like my mother, she had to have her cigarette. That was the very first thing that she wanted to do every morning was have a cigarette.
Yeah.
For other people, they have to work out. I mean, whatever it is.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's and so yeah, when I started seeing this alternative to coffee, I thought, this is, of course, it's not inexpensive, but
well, if it makes you, the thing is with habits is you don't have to change them unless you recognize they're not serving you. And if you recognize that a cigarette when you wake up or a cup of coffee when you wake up is not a great habit because you don't feel amazing, then change needs to come. If, however, you feel fantastic, it doesn't impact your life, it's not detrimental, then carry on. So it's about evaluating which are the habits that need changing, and then focusing energy and attention towards how to change them. And it's not easy, but it takes the conscientiousness to design a plan, do what you've done, find an alternative, try to change a habit. And I mean, I'm sure you've read James Clear's Atomic Habits. And one of the tips that he talks about is removing accessibility for the habits that are serving you. And I've practiced this when I've had periods of giving up caffeine. I just make sure that there's an abundance of ginger and lemon.
Yeah. If you don't have coffee available, you're not going to drink coffee.
Yeah, exactly. And yeah, but it's up to us to design our lives in such a way where it's more positively aligned with what we value.
Right. And it's okay to indulge every once in a while. And I think that's one of the things that people forget is, okay, I'm going on a diet and I'm never going to touch cake again. And then, somebody has this cake. It's okay. Have a piece. Don't eat the whole cake.
Exactly that. Exactly. It's understanding it. The way I talk about it in my book is about values alignment. And it's asking yourself the question of is this in line with my values? So a glass of wine when you're in a celebratory moment because familial celebrations are one of the moments you value most in life, then go for it. It doesn't extreme.
Yeah. You'll love this. One of my doctors prescribed a glass of wine several times a week for me.
Because it makes you happy.
It actually, there's a neurological basis for it. And so, but Yeah, it was like, I've been prescribed wine. Now I just need one to prescribe chocolate and I'm going to be happy as can be. But you mentioned your book, and again, it's called The Big Impact Without Burnout, and you have 8 energizing strategies.
Yeah.
And we're not going to go into all 8 because aside from anything else, we want people to buy the book. But one of the biggest ones is energy management. So let's talk more about that.
Thank you. Yeah, I mean, the way the book is structured is 2 parts. The first 4 strategies are building the inner foundations. How do we go within to ground ourselves in a powerful way, to be able to thrive in life? And then part 2 are the 4 strategies about going out into the world and around the work that we do, relationships and fulfillment. But it all starts with energy. And that's why strategy number 1 is energy, because our productivity naturally relates back to our energy. And the number 1 complaint I have from clients that come to me is, I don't have enough energy for my life.
Right. Doesn't matter anything because I just don't have enough energy to do it.
Exactly. And I'm exhausted. And what I teach is that we all hold the power within ourselves to create all the energy we need to do the abundance of things that matter most to us. The reason we feel energetically depleted is because perhaps we've been misdirected in different directions that are draining our energy. So it's up to us to become very aware of what in our lives is draining our energy, what in our lives makes the fountain of energetic abundance start flowing, and then reorganize our lives in such a way where we're focusing in on what enlivens our energetic pulse, if you like. So looking at what drains us, this can be types of work that we do, types of people, environments, situations, just becoming very aware of how much time am I spending doing stuff I don't like. And then becoming aware of what makes us feel excited and alive. Because if we spend the majority of our lives in that realm of excitement and honoring our values, we are energized. We are naturally energized. Understanding when we are relying on fake energetic stimulants is
my cup of coffee.
Like a cup of coffee or pharmacology or alcohol. Certainly used to be one of my favorite ones. Friday night, exhausted at the end of the week, what would I do? Go out and drink loads of bubbles and keep going.
And then you're Oogie on Saturday.
Wrecked, ruined. Or I've got a cold, but instead of going home and having chicken soup and a hot lemon, I'm taking whatever medication I can find that's pumped full of caffeine, phenylalanine, and fake. So there's an awareness that needs to take place to understand how are we nourishing our own energetic selves. And that is physical, mental, and emotional. Just taking a look and taking a pulse of where am I right now in terms of my harmonic energy state. And this is what I go into in the book, where we look at how am I nourishing myself with the different environments that I'm in, the people that I'm in, with the vitality of the food that I'm putting into my body. And what can I do to enhance this further? And when we get to that lovely place where we're optimized and honoring our values, then funnily enough, we've got all the energy to do whatever we want to do. But that's our power. And we just need to take responsibility for it. Stop hoping that tomorrow we'll be on top of the to-do list. Tomorrow we'll feel better. We've got to make changes today to impact tomorrow.
Right. Well, oh my gosh, we are actually, folks, we're going to cut the session just a little bit short today. I mentioned those 4 teenagers and Bianca's priority of family. They need picked up from school. So, we are going to have a little bit shorter program, but all that means is we just have to have you on again, because this is so incredibly important. I think we really need to continue this discussion. One of the things we didn't talk about is one of the most important words that we need to know, and that's no, right? Telling people or ourselves no. And I love it when people say, and that's a complete sentence. Right? We don't have to say no, but You know, right? That's usually the word we follow it, but I'll do it later. Or no, no.
You're right. Yeah, you're so right. And especially when we are in that place of following our excitement, feeling energized by the prospect of this, and this, and this.
Right.
Actually, it's recognizing that we should not be doing too much, and that no is incredibly empowering. You're right.
Right. I love it. I love it. Well, if people are going, oh my gosh, this sounds so important, how do they find you and connect with you? And what are the services that you provide?
Thank you so much. So my website, biancabest.com, lists all of my services, and I work with individuals and offer coaching around every topic that impacts our life impact, from everything from divorce to promotion to entrepreneurialism. I work with clients to get into a place of energy and thriving. I work with organizations and consult, whether it's a small business, a startup, or a massive conglomerate. I work to ensure that burnout prevention is at the core of the people that are turning the wheels of the wonderful business. I do keynotes and inspire audiences on stage, and I sell copies of my books.
Of course.
Big Impact Without Burnout, which you can see, a very large front cover of the book behind me, is available in all major retailers, Amazon, Barnes and Noble, all over the world. And if anyone wants to get in touch with me, please send me an email, bianca@biancabest.com. I write a weekly article all around burnout prevention tips, like the one you mentioned, talking about caffeine this week. And it's my pleasure to inspire and help ambitious souls to step into their very best selves.
I love it. I love it. And we will also link to your LinkedIn profile because you're very active on LinkedIn. So that will be in the show notes.
Thank you.
As I said, we will have you on again because we just scratched the surface on this. And so we definitely want to continue this discussion. But until then, do you have any final thoughts that you want to leave everyone with?
One tip: when we are up in our mental brain and we're feeling the swirl and panic of overwhelm, I invite you to take a deep belly breath. Take a deep breath down into the tummy and simultaneously rub your thumb against your first 2 fingers on your hand and really feel the physicality of the sensations while you're doing this. Taking that deep breath into the belly whilst you're doing this maneuver gets us out of our mind, deep down into the body, and it immediately creates a moment of homeostasis and peace, and we're physically grounded into ourselves. It can be a wonderful way to just spend 2 seconds getting out of the mayhem of modern life into a very calm, peaceful place.
Oh my gosh, I can't wait to do that. I am Deb Creer. I've been having such a fascinating discussion with Bianca Best. And until next time, everyone have a great day.
Tune in for our next program for even more trends, best practices, and techniques for how to make your business a success. The Business Power Hour, hosted by Deb Creer, is proud to be part of the C-Suite Network.